Sweet. So what about sales managers?
Yeah, sales management. This is one for the sales managers, right? We covered a lot about sales for agents, but one for the sales managers, because I think without strong leadership in a sales team, all the other stuff sort of falls over. It is all about sales leadership, and I'll tell you what, it is one of the hardest roles to fill. So today I want to talk about if you're a sales manager aspiring, or you're a sales manager currently, or you're looking to move into sales directorship, it is probably one of the most valuable episodes I could do about sales, because it's all about management. That said, let's dive into it. So again, so if you're an existing sales manager, you'll understand the concept of being the friend, being the coach, being the counselor, because the sales guys are relatively a little bit crazy. They're very hyper orientated, meaning their personalities are quite high performed, right? Is that they think quickly, they're highly emotional. So there's a lot of variables to manage on that. Sales managers know exactly what I'm talking about. Like they struggle to leave the baggage at the door, and they bring it inside the team a lot. There's good and bad things to that. It can make a great sales performer, but what it does, it makes them inconsistent. The other thing is, you really have to consider the recruitment process, systems, technology, and all that sort of stuff, right? So I always get asked, what's the hardest thing about being a sales manager? The first thing I always say is recruitment. So I'm going to start, because you have to understand the archetype that you're trying to recruit. You have to understand the results you're trying to achieve in a balanced way. And when I mean a balanced way, if you're going to have a sales team, you need not just one type of person, you need maybe 2 or 3 types of people that balance the team. So if you want to build a successful sales team, break the team down on paper and write down the different types of people that you're looking for, because what you'll find is it takes the weight off the recruitment process. It puts a little bit of flavor and variety inside the team, and it gives you a little bit more consistency. The top performers will be inconsistent at best. The mediocre performers will be consistent, which is great. And then you'll have the technical people that are sort of a little bit more focused on not closing but customer service, right? That would be my approach. Now, it all depends on the product and the size of the team and the amount of sales that you need to generate. If you're a startup and you need to run fast, you just get closers, right? They're pretty rough, they're up and down, they carry a lot of baggage with them, so you have to manage them that way. If you're a bigger team, you're looking for 10, you could have maybe 5 good selling people who are consultative, and then 5 quite aggressive, assertive agents who close deals at a higher rate. If you had 20, you might get the opportunity to break the team up into 3 different archetypes, right? And have a relatively good balance. If you're an existing sales manager, you'll know this. When you have girls on the team, they balance the guys out, and the guys can motivate the girls, right? I think it's a really nice balance in a team. So being an effective sales manager, you have to understand psychology to a point. You don't need to be a psychologist. It would help though. But you need to understand that, right? Because the sales is very much a human function. And, if you're going to meetings and you're making outbound calls, it's a human function, right? So understanding that. So the first concept of sales management for me would be recruitment and understanding the types of people and personalities you need to recruit, right? Let's tick that box. So what's the second thing? For me, it's KPI, key performance indicators, or KRA, key results achieved. So setting the boundaries for the salespeople, right? Whether they're FTEs or contractors, it doesn't really matter. So if they're freelancers, they should have a KPI that's high achieving. If they're FTEs, they should have a KPI that's high achieving, but it'll just be structured differently because you're paying them a base salary, right? So you need to cover your costs. So if you're trying to work that out, again, commit this to paper. You should always use a spreadsheet for all of your sales metrics, and then somehow push that into a SaaS platform and your specialist from the team who can manage it for you. So simple spreadsheet, put down a minimum of 3 tiers for commissions. People get this wrong. And then what are your costs? So you got to cover your OPEX. So your OPEX will include the cost of the lead that you give to the agent. It'll include the cost of their seat, which is their licensing for email, their licensing for CRM services, and their cost of SMSs, right? That's normally a sort of a roundabout sort of way. I even factor in energy consumption. So I have a 0.5 energy consumption ratio in there. So I'm quite technical when I break down costs. And let's just say, okay, it costs me to give leads to an agent so they can generate revenue. to cover their salary, superannuation, insurances, licensing, and seat costs. It's going to cost me $3,000 a week. Okay, so I start from there. At a minimum, as a sales manager or a business owner, you need to 2x your investment. Like, you need to make 100%. So if the cost of the agent is $3,000, is that $3,000 gross, right? You need to add GST, so that's 10% if you're paying GST and all those costs. So get really accurate with this. So now it's not 3,000, it's 3,300, and there might be some other index variables in there that you'll need to consider. I don't know what they may be for you, but interest rates or whatever they may be, you might put a variable in for that. But all right, so once you've got that, you need to 2x it. So I need to make a minimum of $6,600 every week from you as a sales agent. And as a sales manager, that's my responsibility. At a minimum to the company or to yourself if you're self-employed. So those are the basics, right? So get the KPI right. The third thing is training and development / induction process. When you bring a sales agent into your team as a manager, you have to give them every opportunity to succeed. Most managers don't know how to do this because it's highly administrative. You've got to pitch and catch it a lot because it goes up, it goes down, it goes sideways depending on who the candidate is. So document it. I have an induction document. I just rewrote it actually this week. It's got, because we're recruiting a lot of sales staff, it's got, I think it's about 26, 27 induction key points in it, and it starts with, getting the agent prepped and ready with licensing and everything they need to start up on that first day. 1 week before they start, we give them access to certain information that we need them to read, Before they start, their contract will be drafted, ready, reviewed, and signed off on. Everything down to where they are going to be seated, right? Like, where am I going to place them? I'm pretty big when I was a sales manager, using a buddy system. Like, who is this person? So he's an A-type personality. I've got an A-type guy in the team. He sort of likes coaching and makes it perform better, so I sit him next to that guy. It's a young woman. She's only had 3 years worth of experience. She's a B-type personality. I'm going to sit her next to this person. So I really think quite strategically about that. I think it's pretty important. So when they come into the business, they're really well supported. They're prepped and ready to go. And you set the expectation, which is one of the biggest things. Remember, I just spoke about KPIs. Here is your KPI. It costs me $3,300 to keep you active in that seat. Your minimum required is $6,600. Here's the KPI that you need to do every day to meet that target for me. I'm going to give you 30 days to get there. And in that 30 days, you've got no revenue for week 1, but you're on the board in week 2. And we're slowly going to ramp you up over a 30 to 60 day period. Does that make sense? Do you understand? Do you have any questions? And then you get them going. Because you don't want to put an agent in a position where, they don't really know what's going on or what their expectation is. You need to be very clear about that. By the way, talk about the money up front, please. Don't lie about it and try and make it sound great. Tell them it's going to be difficult, tell them it's going to be hard, and then bring them into the team like that. All right, so that's the third thing, induction, right? Bringing them in well. And then the last thing is accountability. You have to hold your agents accountable. How do you do that? Many, many different ways depending on their personality type. So if you can see my narrative, you have to manage everybody differently because they will all respond differently because they all have different personality archetypes, right? Like, they're just different people. They behave differently. They see things and think differently. So you just have to consider and understand that. So that's sort of my thing. Those are my 4 key sort of pillars, right? But that last pillar is so critical to get right, is that if you don't hold them accountable to follow the right systems, to use the CRM correctly, to follow company policy, to not lie to customers, to do all those great things, you'll set them up for failure and they'll start to create bad habits, and then the team will start to say things like, well, that guy can do it, so I can do it. And then it'll start to fall apart. It's like a sports team, right? Like, you got to manage them like a sports team. Turn up on time, hit your KPI. If you don't, I'm going to bench you. And that may mean benching you is I'm going to take you off Google Leads. You're not going to get the great leads anymore, mate. Why? Because you're not performing. So now you have to work twice as hard to get those back. So set that accountability tone right at the start of the recruitment process. But if you've refined your recruitment process, that'll be one of the items that you discuss in the first interview. So those are my 4 key pillars. I hope that helps. But look, sales management is super tough, super complicated. It may be 2 people, it may not be 1. If you're looking to be a sales manager or you're an existing sales manager, you know what I mean, right? It's so difficult. But to build a successful team is like being the coach. You've got to be there for them in their personal lives, which is challenging, as well as their professional life, but without crossing the line, really, without crossing the line. I can talk more about that in another episode. So I hope that helps. I've got to run. I'm going to go get a coffee, actually. And we'll catch you guys soon. See you.